Hi, welcome to this week's episode of Making Light Two Humans Being. I'm Julie Heard, and with me as always is Kate Foggo and Sally the cat, and Lucas is at my feet. This week we're talking about, the topic is, should I or shouldn't I? And it starts off with Kate and I talking about when we're in a situation and the conversation is getting a little bit out of what we would agree with or out of love, I will say. Do we show people, share with people our thoughts, or shouldn't we? And what happens? And then it goes into a lot of different other contexts and other situations. So just hang on for the ride. So without further ado, here's this week's episode of Making Light Two Humans Being. If you like it, feel free to subscribe, hit the little dingy thing, the little bell, so you get alerted when there's new episodes. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. You can leave comments below. Please let us know what you think. We love how people are giving us their thoughts and ideas, so we really want to hear what you think, particularly too around this week's episode. So enjoy.
You and I have been talking about things that have been coming up for us, and although this wasn't actually one of the topics, it's just come around organically, and that is I think hopefully by the time we get an introduction we'll have honed it down better, but we think a running commentary or a working title, shall we say, will be "Shut Up, Nobody Gives a Shit."
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah.
So you start. You tell us the scenario you just described to me.
Okay, so I'm gonna back up just a tiny step and frame it in the title of this program, right? Making Light Two Humans Being. We're intuitives. We've had a lot of conversation, education, thoughtfulness around spirituality, intuitiveness, greater consciousness, all that, right? And then we become human and we're still grappling with it. Case in point is me watching people around me have conversations about any given topic. Of lately, it's been gender and gender identification. And I see people do this, where they begin to resist the idea of anybody's doing anything they want to do. And my standpoint is, you just love them for who they are. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. At the end of none of this matters. And when they're doing this, I will try to engage them on if you take a look at it from this point of view, or, that point of view, pull in the spiritual tools that we have and all this type of stuff. I get either more of this, or I get this eye roll. Oh, there goes Julie again. Or I get this, why do you have to educate everybody all the time? Those are like the things I get. And when I was a kid, my mom would say to me, "Nobody gives a damn, Julie." And so I learned.
Okay, you said that, but in what context does your mom say that? Like, what have you been talking about that nobody gives a damn about?
I was either not feeling well and trying to express that I wasn't feeling well. And so she'd be like, "Nobody gives."
That's just neglect then.
Well, her mom was a hypochondriac, and so she learned to go the other way. And then but also there were just other times too when I was expressing like an emotion or a feeling I can remember, and she would just, "Nobody gives a damn, Julie." So I learned to kind of shut down, and that's been part of this whole experience of opening up and tapping into the intuitiveness and all of this that you and I talk about all the time, is learning to reopen up my throat chakra, expressing myself, all this type of stuff. And so then I get in these conversations and I'm like, wow, I've learned all this, and it's time for me to express myself. And here we go.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, Julie.
Yeah. So there's flag one. And so then it's just, but then the conversation internally begins. But wait, is that ego? Or wait, should I express myself? Do I just love everybody? Do I just sit here and be a puddle of love? Like, this is so that's the dealio. So go.
Because that, look how much I've learned. I can share, I can educate you. That's pure ego, right? Do you see that? Yeah.
Yeah.
What would happen if you said nothing? So imagine there's you there's Brad and his sister, and they're talking about something that typically you would have your 10 pence worth to say. What do you think would play out if you said nothing, didn't sit there frowning or anything, but just literally looked pleasant, looked interested, did not engage? What do you think would happen?
I think the conversation would probably peter out.
Okay.
Or it would just feel super, super uncomfortable. Then that's really the thing, is it would feel super, super uncomfortable.
So this is well, no, I yeah, that's yeah. Let's just for fun, we can cut it out if it's shit, right? But
Okay.
so I'm Brad, right? And I'll go, what's the matter, Julie? Do you not have something to say about that?
No, it's very super interesting. I'm just listening.
See, I don't know what I thought would happen there. I think people then become more curious, maybe not Brad, because he knows your opinion. But I think then people would say, well, okay, so tell me what you think. You know, like opening up as opposed to you going, you know, you bunch of bigots, here's how I see it. But it's interesting because where do you draw that line between shining your light and educating people? I think, and I don't know which teacher this is, let me think. See, I think when you come from that, it is an egoic state of, I don't like what you're saying, and I have an opportunity to, you know, you may not feel angry or whatever, but there is definitely this egoic desire to educate somebody else because you don't agree. And I don't think that gets you anywhere. I can't think what I think it's Abraham Hicks that says, have you ever, and we said this in the last, when we were talking, it's not actually in the show bit, but when you were having that conversation with your brother-in-law and he was being quite antagonistic in a way, and you know, you say you stayed calm and everything, but do you really think that you changed his mind in any way, shape or form?
No, I know I didn't.
So it's actually more
made him dig his heels in.
Yeah. It's actually more about self-preservation. The image that comes in mind to me was somebody said very early on in my journey, I read somewhere, is keep a little bit back. And I really didn't understand what that meant. And I'm still not sure I do, but I sort of do. And it's almost like, don't put yourself out there to be shot down. It's like this is not how you change lives. This is not how you educate people. And it's like you waste so much energy, and it invariably, if you can do it without triggering your ego, brilliant, because I can't, because at some point I'll go, you're a bunch of fucking you know, because you're so stupid and I'm so clever and I know more than you, because at the end of the day my ego is still there, and it's any opportunity is ready to come out and tell you how right I am, Julie, because I am always right. And I'm more educated than you, and I'm not a bigot. But you know, so if you can do that without getting riled up, but it's actually, I think if you see it more as self-protection, because if somebody, you have to trust that if you have an opportunity to educate somebody, that opportunity will present itself. You don't have to force it.
True. That's a really good point. And you know what's interesting too is that because Brad knows how I think about these things, so he wants to pull me into the conversation, but I can tell the rest of the group could give two shits what I have to say, because there goes woo woo.
Shut up, Julie. Well, see, do I ever get that? I suppose I don't really talk about stuff with other people. I mean, Gary just talks at me about things I don't agree with. You know, I'll sit there and go, you do know I don't agree, don't you? And he'll go, yeah, and then just carry on. But he'll keep saying we. And I'm like, it's not we, because I don't agree with you.
Like, he does that too to me. He did that to me the other night on a completely different topic, on something that I'm actually is like it's like, and I won't say what it is because I just don't want to get him into trouble, but he but it's like the fundamentalist of to not believe this one thing. It just like completely rocks my world. He's like, yeah, I think I'm getting older because now I kind of see like why I'd be opposed to that. And I'm like, what? And then I thought, and then I just immediately went, okay, whatever. and let it go, because I thought, I'm not going to, I'm going to freak myself out. I'm going to get all anxious and nervous and get all riled up, and it's, that's fine. Let it go.
So hang on. So did he change his opinion to a favourable or an unfavourable position?
Unfavorable position. He's always been favorable. We've been in lockstep, and now he's like, well, now I'm kind of seeing it. And I'm like, oh, there's no.
You're packing your bags.
Say what?
You're packing your bags.
Packing bags.
Packing your bags.
No, it's
well,
not. I don't think you. I don't know.
We just had an election. Well, we get our votes early because we always post our votes in. So actually, the election's not till the 5th. And Gary has finally just lost patience with the Tory party. So, I mean, I married a Tory by mistake because I didn't know. And so now he is completely apolitical, so he says, right? But it's quite funny because we're watching that Anatomy of a Scandal on Netflix. I don't know if you've seen it.
No, I have seen of it, but I haven't watched it. Is it good?
It is. I don't know if it's just got a bit silly, but up until now it's been good. But he, immediately you see the character, and we're both like, he's got to be a Tory. I mean, even Gary, who is a Tory, you're like, this man's a Tory, and sure enough, like it doesn't say anything, but you're like, it has to be a Tory anyway. So he is a Tory. It's quite funny because Gary's now convinced he's apolitical. I mean, he's not, but it's like Scottish independence. I'm not sure it'd be the great time for Scotland to look for independence. I think COVID's probably taken quite a lot of money out of the coffers, but it does keep coming up. And though whilst I am not a Scottish Nationalist Party supporter necessarily, I have voted for them, and I have a friend who thinks really highly of Nicola Sturgeon, who is our, I don't know what you call it, not Prime Minister.
Minister?
I don't think she is. First Minister, I think we call it, First Minister of Scotland.
Oh.
And Gary absolutely hates her, but like he talks at me. He goes, these idiots who voted for independence. I'm like, you're fucking looking at me. That's me. You do know. Like, he just talks at me about these idiots, and I just think it's so funny. It's like it just doesn't get through his head that he's actually insulting me. Like, or maybe he doesn't care. I don't know, but he still talks to me as if I agree with him, and yet he knows. I supported. I voted for independence, and to be fair, I don't know. It's funny, isn't it, that I can't imagine a situation of that reversed. Like I have always expected people to think differently to me. I think it's like I would never assume that Gary agreed with me necessarily. I don't know.
See, and it's like, I think people agree with me from a political and social aspect. I think I go into situations thinking people agree with me because I feel like the way that I feel about how people get along is like standard. Like, of course. You know what I mean? And then I come to find, so then I'll be in a conversation. I've learned though the hard way not to do this anymore. But I will have been in a conversation and I'll be like, because to me it's like matter of fact, like, okay, I'm just going to say it. I don't understand why anybody would vote for Trump. I just don't understand. It's all
no, I don't
get it. But then when I find out people who are close to me have, and I'm like, everything I know and believe about you has just rocked my complete world, because then I just think you're voting for hate. That's my black and white.
Well, a lot of people did vote for him. Like Gary's going off to the States and he was talking about the thing, is it Mount Rushmore?
Yeah.
Well, there's somewhere else where there are something of presidents, and apparently they stopped Obama. Like they haven't. It was I don't know if it was a statue or something, but they stopped at Obama, and he's like, well, who on earth is gonna like do Trump? Like, because you don't really want. But it's like, well, I don't know. More than 50% of the country voted for him, so these people exist.
Not more than 50% of the country voted for him.
Okay, enough to
we have this weird
tip the ballot. Yeah. We have the same. First past the post, isn't it?
Well, you've got popular vote and you've got electoral vote here, and they go with the electoral vote, which is not the popular vote. So but that I'm talking the first election. The second election clearly lost, but that's a whole other scandal. But he was elected the first time, kind of. So
I suppose so going back to the sort of educating people, I think before we get into dangerous drunk territory, get shut down. I see there is an element of goody two shoes about it, and I think that irritates people.
Yeah, because when you go ahead. What are you gonna say?
No, go ahead.
So, because going through the Course of Miracles, there's really only two things, is how it's all about, boils down to: fear and love, fear or love. And you can make a decision on any given thing: fear or love, fear and love. You stay in love, you're with God. And it's not that you're against God if you're in fear, it's just God wants you to be love, because God is love. So if you approach anything like that, then, and you say that it, right, wow, I love everybody. And then people get all, they bring up their stuff. And it's just like, no, I still love you.
But also nobody likes to be told that
Right.
they're being, well, most educated people who think of themselves as open-minded, and I mean, the more open-minded I get, the more I realize I don't know jack shit about half the stuff in the world, you know. And but nobody likes to be talked down to, I suppose. And that, I think the danger is that it sounds like a morality thing.
Yeah. And it gets to the very fiber of their being, which is also, to some degree, what I understand is why this right-wing group
Careful now.
felt like they've been spoken down to. What? Wait, what?
Careful now.
No, I know. I'm trying to but when I read analysis of what's going on, the polarity, you have one side feeling like they're being spoken down to, and you have the other side many times feeling like they know better. And so it just creates this, and then they judge. I mean, there's judging, there's insecurity, there's all this stuff, and it's like, ugh, ultimately it won't matter, or we'll blow ourselves all up.
I see the thing about political correctness gone mad, shall we call it that? I still struggle with that, Julie, because okay, I've learned a lot with RuPaul's Drag Race about gender, sexuality. I mean, I have to sit there with my mobile phone googling stuff all the time because I don't get it all. That's real people. I get to know them. It opens my mind, and as I say, the more I learn, the more I think, geez, I thought I know nothing. When I was growing up, I thought I was cool because I had a gay friend. I kissed a girl and I liked it. That makes me the coolest person. But and you realize there's so much more to it. But there is an element of, oh, for heaven's sake, really more like people. And I think it's exactly that. When I watch it in RuPaul's Drag Race, I have context. I get to know the people. I respect the people. When they tell their stories of how they have been bullied at school for either their gender, their sexuality, they've been alienated from their homes, or worse, they're ignored, all of that. It's real, it's people. I'm with them, I can see it. When I get presented with a list of things I can and can't say, and a list of pronouns that I'm supposed to use, people, there is a bit of you that goes, oh, for fuck's sake, because nobody wants to be wrong, but at the same time you're like, well, when I was growing up, you were a girl or a boy and you just had to get on with it. So there was this idea that, oh, well, not that ever gender's been an issue, but as we were talking about gender last week, and I looked it up, and there are, I've got the page open, but I can't remember who referenced it, but there are 112 genders identified in 2021, 22. Looking through, there were a lot of them that actually just too convoluted. I don't really understand them at all. I only glanced at them, but I'm pretty sure that with 122 of them, you and I could tick a few of them. I'm just, so there is this element of, is this an academic exercise now? Why does everybody have to have, I do think it's good. It's obviously good that people are allowed to express themselves and that they can be who they want. But there is a sort of shrugging of shoulders and just going, does it really matter? Now, on the one hand, yes, it does, because I see that in RuPaul's Drag Race about things I didn't know were an issue, and you're like, I didn't even know that existed.
Mhm.
Transgender, for example, never really understood that. It's like so a little lesson from Drag Race. People who dress up as women in Drag Race, people who go into drag, do not want to be women. They are not. There are a few of them that are trans or want to be trans women, but the vast majority of them, yes, they are gay men, that's their sexuality, but gender-wise, they're men, and there's no question, but there are all other ones all mixed in with that. But that was eye-opening to me. I didn't really understand all of that. And when you see how anybody is basically alienated or what's the word, oppressed, then that's wrong. But do you need 112 genders to find your space? I suppose that's it. There's a level of how far do you take it? So on the one hand, does it matter? No. I guess that's it. Maybe we should just be teaching people that unless it affects you personally, like that you're the person who has to keep changing the name on the toilets, just let people do what they want to do.
Well,
but I guess it's
having a toilet. I mean, not to get into the nitty gritty, but I never have really quite understood why toilets are separated. Everybody.
I think it's, do you know what? I was thinking about that because if I was in a communal changing room and there was a lesbian there, it wouldn't bother me in the slightest. So why, I would be uncomfortable changing in front of a man. I do not feel uncomfortable in front of women. So it's not a sex thing, or is it a sex thing? I don't know. I don't know.
To me, because when I lived in Germany, there is absolutely no qualms about bathing in the nude or going to the beach or whatever, pool, everything's off. That freaked me out the first time I ever saw that. Oh my God. I mean, hello, Midwestern Catholic German background, right? But it doesn't matter. Midwestern Catholic girl, white girl, right? Goes to Germany. She's all of 8. No, how old was I? No, this time I went a couple times. This time I was 22, fresh out of college, but whatever. And I go to this with a bunch of guys. I'm the only girl and I'm the only American, and they're all European, and we all get our towels out and I put them all down and it's all nice and neat and whatever. I got my cute little bikini on and whatever. And I look up and all I see are bare asses running towards the water. And then I look around and I see boobs, I see everything. And I'm like, what the, oh my God. Like for me, it just totally freaked me out. However, as I stayed in Germany, I stayed there for several years, I learned about it. I have never personally been comfortable in doing as the Romans do, if you will. However, I do always admire that there is no shame around the human body. It is what it is, and we just put these things around it, and I'm like, so yeah.
So did you not, if you were with everybody was naked, you still couldn't be?
Could not. I could not get past.
And I assume they were not all supermodels.
Oh God, no. Oh my God. No, I don't think I saw it. I can tell you, okay, I can tell you, I didn't see a single super in the whole time I lived in Germany.
I love that. You see, this is why there is a group of my wild swimmers that go naked, right? And I have done it a few times, and I don't feel a huge difference. A lot of people, it's lovely to feel the water in your skin and all that. Maybe it's because I'm too cold. Maybe if it was a bit warmer, I'd have more appreciation for that. I have enjoyed it for precisely that. I was so hung up about my body and what I look like. And yet when most people take their clothes off, even the people who, I might be intimidated by, once you've got the clothes off, there's no hiding anything. And I think if we spent more time with people who are naked, there would be so much less obsession with this perfection, because it doesn't exist. You can make someone look perfect in a nightclub. You cannot make them look perfect running down a beach. It's like,
no, because there's no.
And that's what fascinated me about it. I think it's enormously helpful for anyone with body image issues. And I would go more. It's just they tend to go at night because they don't want to scare people, because technically it's illegal. It's not illegal to be naked. It's illegal to get naked. So if there are already people there, or there are children or whatever, but if you're there and people happen across you, but you know, yeah, so I don't, it's just because I would go more if it wasn't sort of in the evenings, because it's just not a good time for me. But you know, and there is a bit of me that thinks I would love to go to like a library naked and be with other people who are naked, because I just think that it would take away just another of my, you know, well, you know what, but I'm surprised that when you were with that many people that you didn't take your clothes off.
Oh my God. Well, I'd never seen it before, but even going forward in my time there, I still, and even now, I couldn't do it. I really couldn't. Maybe I could. Maybe I could. I don't know. But
did they tease you?
No. Mm-mm.
So it was perfectly okay, because I was also part of a skinny dipping group where the lady who was running the group was not bullying, but basically saying, if you're not going to get your clothes off, don't come, because there was someone who had come along and wasn't quite sure, whatever, and she had a tolerance level of 0 basically, and she went, you know, because if it, and there was points on both sides, it caused this big rift. It was hilarious. One, because if it was a man, and that's a bit unfair, but if it's a man, or you don't want people coming along staying fully clothed, like, why are you in a skinny dipping group? Because if you're not, if you're just here to ogle, go away.
Right.
But it was a woman, so it wasn't really so much that, it's just that she had issues physically because it's fucking cold, but also, and certain parts of your body are, as you would find out if you took your clothes off, are a lot more sensitive to the cold than others.
Well, yeah,
to
me,
me,
not exposed, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, it's a moot point when you're in sort of 3-degree water, really. Right. But you know, even having covering over your breasts, for example, it does provide a minuscule amount of protection. That, you know, so anyway, but it caused this big rift in the group, which is quite funny, really, because, you know, there's sort of the naked Nazi who wouldn't let this woman stay in the group because she hadn't taken her clothes off, and you're like, this is just bizarre, but it's fun. But I just think it's an amazing thing to do.
Yeah,
amazing.
It did. Oh man, to just be so, I mean, I appreciated
free.
When I was there. Yeah, to be so free and to not care and to just be you.
That's the key.
That part was super cool. And I still think that's cool. And I brought it up the other day too with Brad when somehow we were talking about this again. Because one of my heroes is Jonathan Van Ness from Queer Eye, who is non-binary. And he loves to have the conversations on the show about pronouns and what is it and how does it, all the things like, and it's so helpful. And Brad brought it up and I said, you know, we're not going to get it right, but that's okay too, because we're growing and learning. And so like for me, this whole idea of 112 genders, or right now, right, it's probably could expand, it could contract, because we're creating as we're going forward, which I also find interesting. When my brother-in-law on Easter asked my mom, who, you know, we pretty sure has dementia, Alzheimer's, something going on. She said, nope, 2 genders. And everything should just be black and white. And I'm just like, well, you know, if we think of it in terms of co-creating with the divine, of course, things are going to evolve and grow and change. And that's part of the fun. To keep it where it's always been, that's kind of, you know, that t-shirt that you can get that says been there, done that, like, I don't know. It's it's interesting to me to at least explore it and explore the language around it and explore the attitudes around it. I just never know. Like, I don't feel like anybody wants, well, outside of our group and whatnot, you know, people in my family aren't necessarily wanting to take my hand and explore it too.
I guess the simple answer is to choose your audience. But so I would do I talk about things? I don't do I I'm afraid of, so it's funny, isn't it? Because there is, and we talked about this when we did the white prejudice thing, that, you know, I still struggle with prejudice in the sense that I still think some stuff's funny, and then, you know, and if it's not meant with malice, does it really matter? And I think people are too sensitive. But I also understand that in some way I can see how it can undermine, you know, I'm on to, but it just, I am guilty of making prejudice jokes because I think they're funny. I wouldn't do it in public, but I do it with my husband. But it's funny because the line now of what is accepted from what isn't is moving because I'm becoming more aware. Would I tell him off for it? I do tell him off, but I do it as a joke. There's a bit of me, if I'm honest, I don't want to be that goody two shoes. I don't want to be so far over there that I'm just fucking. I suppose that's exactly it. I don't want people to say to what you're saying. I don't want to be people to go, oh, Kate, and roll their eyes. That tedious woman's in the room now, you know, can't say anything because the something police are here. What would you call it? The discrimination police are here. I don't want to be that one.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of it. The Scottish government is pushing a lot of diversity issues, which is great. But, you know, there is a lot of fun poked it around that because actually there's a lot of people that are quite backward. I mean, the young people, I don't know what it's like in America, in the young people here, certainly no issues with gender, doesn't even, or sexuality, it doesn't bother them in the slightest. They're all okay with it, they're all fine, there's no, you know, and I think that's great. But then I think, well, actually, do you know what, we allowed that to happen because we are, not me personally because I don't have any children, but my generation has allowed that to happen. I don't remember my parents teaching me anything other than black, white, man, woman.
Yeah, no, I know. Oh shoot, there was something that you said that I was good. Oh, my stepson was here last week actually. And this came up again, and he too is like, I don't really care. It doesn't matter, but it doesn't really, I don't mean to say, but it doesn't really matter to him. It's like, they're just a human being. And so I'm always reminded too of Matt Kahn. Like, Matt Kahn will say, I love you wherever you are. It doesn't, the universe loves you wherever you are. It doesn't matter. So the whole, how do I want to say this? Like, I don't want the goody two shoes thing. I'm trying not to be, because the moment I'm goody two shoes, and this is, I think people think I'm judging them. And so part of the practice is loving the conversation, loving the people who are talking. I may not agree with them. Julie, the human, may not agree with them. I still love them. That to me has been the practice of late. And they may still think I'm being goody two shoes. It's just more of, there's this whole idea of acceptance. You know, if you voted for Trump, I accept you as a human being. You're still a human being, right? I love you. I don't understand you, but I love you.
But let's look at something that does rile you up. Okay, so I know coloured hair does. What else?
What else? Well,
so do you support my right as a child then to go to school with pink hair?
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though you think it's a ridiculous thing and you don't.
I don't, they're just not it's just nails too. I don't get the color. I don't get the funky. Okay, so me growing up, it was, you know, clear or really red, pink, like reddish tones. Now it's all different kinds of colors. I don't understand the colors. I don't understand the colors in hair. But if that's what you want to do, hey, knock yourself out. It's just not something I would do.
I don't remember you being that calm about it when we discussed coloured hair before.
I don't, because I know people who are watching this show, some of them will have colored hair, and it's not like, I don't want them to feel like I don't think less of
I don't think they'll care, Julie, that you don't like it.
Oh.
I love coloured hair. I just think it's the coolest thing in the world. And I would do it if I could be bothered with the upkeep, but there's a lot of upkeep involved in keeping your hair bright. You see, it's funny because, like, as I say, my line is moving, I feel like a bit of a hypocrite though, because I do think some things are funny, and there is still a bit of me that goes, oh, for heaven's sake, do we really need 112 genders? You know, because like, you know, but it's a humanizing aspect, isn't it? It's when you see it in context or you are directly involved, and you're like, oh my God, this does matter. And I suppose that the position we have to take is, until you've been in that situation, if it's not bothering you, just fucking leave it alone. Let people do what they want. And with the goody two shoes stuff, I think you get a bit interesting experiment, because I say less and less now, because there's no point me saying to Gary, all these fucking idiots wearing masks, and I go, well, you don't know what they're going home to. The government's been pushing at this, you know. I think masks are nonsense. We both think. Interestingly, when COVID started, it was Gary and my sister gave me a outrageously hard time, because I was determined that I was going to get the garage painted anyway, because I was like, fuck's sake, this could be years, let's just do it. He's not at any risk, he's coming to the house, I am not in, you know, we would be separate. And I said, I don't see the harm in it. He still has to live, he still needs to work. And I got shut down. He wanted to work as well, the painter wasn't, you know, he was, that's what I'm saying, we were completely isolated. There was no risk of me infecting him or vice versa or whatever, but it was against the rules because it wasn't essential. You could work in an empty house. And I was like, well, technically it is an empty house because we could shut that part of the house off. All of that got shut down by my sister and Gary about how selfish I was. And I'll be absolutely brutally honest. I had been working on this project for over a year. I wanted it finished. I wasn't fucking waiting for anyone. I didn't see what the big deal was, right? I was like, and it was totally pig-headed selfishness, but also I didn't see the harm in it, right? Wasn't breaking any safety rules or anything like that. I was breaking the law apparently, but not in my mind a moral. But they shut me down completely. And my sister's point was, well, he's now going to get in a car and drive to your house, and if he has an accident, he's putting other people at risk because other people have to go, and you know, and all of that. So I shut down the whole thing. Sorry, told the painter he couldn't come and all of that, and then we couldn't get paint anyway because the whole world went into meltdown, if you remember right at the beginning, because nobody could cope. But just, it's interesting that I was very much like, it's a fucking flu, whatever, people are going to suffer, the only way to get it through is let it rip through the population, people will die, we'll get over it, life will go on. And Gary was very much the opposite, and then he's come round, and now we both agree, on my side obviously, but you know, he's forgotten that actually he was a bit of a COVID police as well at the beginning. He didn't want me going swimming and making me feel guilty about putting other people at risk, you know. So it wasn't about that I feel at risk, it was about whether I was putting other people at risk. So, you know, people do change, and B, A, they change, and B, they don't remember they had a different opinion before. But it's interesting how all of us, we get so het up behind our opinion, we get so attached to our opinions.
Yeah.
I can't remember where I was going with that.
For me, and like hair and then nails, it's just, I don't know, I don't, yeah, the colors are just not my thing. Just not my thing. I don't know. Yeah, it's fine. I know, because I don't, you know, there's this whole debate about furries.
Yes, that's what started it last week, wasn't it?
And that people wear costumes, or they identify as, I don't understand it all, because I haven't done enough reading about it, but I'm just, my sister's all upset about it. I just, yeah, I don't care. Like I couldn't do it, but.
Do you want to explain what a furry is?
Oh, I guess it's a human that's identified closely with either an animal or a cartoon character, possibly. And if anybody knows and feels like leaving a comment and helping us understand further, I would be all for it. Because I'm not 100% sure that the people that are encountering furries in my circle understand it completely either. So I'm like, it was interesting because when it got brought up at Easter dinner, I turned to my 14-year-old nephew and I said, would you just Google this? Because I didn't have my phone with me because we were at the table. He's at 14, his phone at the table. Would you Google this for me so I can read about it really quickly? And he did. And I read about it. And I'm like, so they like to wear it. It's like,
you said there's a small fraction of it that's sexual, but other than that, it's a perfectly.
Yeah, it's like wearing a combat outfit all the time because you identify as a Trekkie, a Star Trek fan, you know. I don't see it really any different than that, but.
See, but in what context? Right. So if that's what you want to do in your spare time, fine. Don't understand it. Do we need a new group for you? Do we? Is that not just dressing up? Am I, I guess there is a bit of that. And also, you're not a Trekkie because they don't exist. So there is a bit of like, I can't ever. But then is that us saying, is that the same as saying you can't be gay? That doesn't exist. It's not the same though, is it?
Yeah, but
because somebody who dresses up.
How do we know that Star Trek doesn't exist? Like, I contend this is a thought.
No, but that's like saying I want to be a fireman. It doesn't give you the right to a different category, isn't it? If I identify with a fireman, for example, or I identify with, but like if I identify as a polar bear, oh, I don't know. We probably need. I want to go away and Google it now.
I know we'll have to and come back to it because I don't know.
See, my view, my prejudice, my judgment is going, that's just them taking a piss. That's somebody who likes the clothes, wants to go to school. This is not it's not, I mean, is that a mental disorder?
I don't know. Is it the inability, is it humanity's inability to understand that, so somebody identifies as a polar bear, to say, or really, really, really likes polar bears and wants to just be a polar bear, whether they identify with it or another, that's a language thing. Is it somebody's parents' inability to grapple with that, but then also address it, but yet not want to squash their child's imagination and curiosity, and so they want to just let them be and explore it?
Well, why can't they let it be?
Like, that's weird, huh? What?
I don't understand why it becomes a thing, because if your child wants to do that, that's fine. Why is that even a thing then? It's sort of like, is it because, I mean, how does this come up? Because it was something to do with school uniforms or something like that?
Well, no, they don't have school uniforms here, so they go to school dressed.
Right, okay.
They're allowed to wear the ears and the collar, and I guess this week now they're allowed to wear the tails. So, and my sister is freaked out about it.
I can see that as just lots of people taking the piss. There may be one child in there that, I guess that's like saying, is it okay to wear a really short skirt? That's just a uniform issue. That's not really a.
Is it okay to have an invisible friend? Like, that's how I look at it too.
Well, exactly. And we all have one of them. Well, I didn't. My sister did.
Is it okay to?
I didn't even have an invisible friend.
Well, I think of it too as like when I was in school, well, college, I identified as a punk, even a punk rock, but I didn't go all out and do the total mohawk. It doesn't matter, but I wanted to be part of that culture. So I dressed that way to be part of that culture. If somebody likes the furry culture, because maybe they're super nice. I have no idea.
Yeah, this is it. We need to read about it, because I don't know whether it is just as you say,
yeah,
I really like this thing and I want to, I want to be a cowboy, so I'll just wear the uniform, or whether, I actually listened to Frank Skinner, he was saying that as a child, he lets his son, I can't remember, but it's about wanting to be a cowboy. What's the harm in that? If you want to dress as a cowboy, if you want to have an invisible friend, that's fine. So yeah, it's all about where do you draw that line. But
where do we have to draw a line, I guess, and then I think that's the question we're asking, is like, where do you draw the line? Do you have to draw the line?
I must admit, if I was a child, we had uniforms, and that was non-negotiable. You weren't even allowed to roll your sleeves up, and your socks had to be at the right length. And when I was at the convent, they used to check the color of your knickers, even though supposedly nobody would see them. But that was a different, and I'm not saying that's necessarily the right way to bring up children either. But I must admit that if you were allowed to wear, if there was no uniform, I would quite rightly say, well, why can't I wear my onesie? Do you have onesies in the state? Is that just a British thing?
No, we've got them here too.
Right. Yeah. Not that I've ever wanted to wear. Oh, I can see the value of them, actually. Actually, maybe that's what I should get myself.
A onesie?
Well, yeah, you wouldn't have to worry about your expanding waistline in a onesie, would you?
Well, at some point, maybe.
Yeah. Once you've filled out the panda suit.
If only, if you can still get across your shoulders, but you can't bring it close up front.
I've just remembered, sorry.
I was going to say, it's which when you talked about the school uniforms and then they have to check your knickers, because here's the thing, to me, like, even if you wore a school uniform, you still, not you, the queen, whatever, royal you, whatever, found a way to express yourself. whether you wore, if you were allowed to wear earrings, you wore a
Oh,
certain,
no, we were not allowed, no, anything, nothing. You know, if
so,
you
like,
found a way, it was crushed. And I suppose that's part of the,
exactly, that's what I mean.
yeah,
Yeah,
is
because
that
somehow,
right? Is that,
yeah.
yeah,
There's
you know,
a
if you,
there's a show on
yeah,
Netflix called The Dairy Girls, or the Dairy Derry. It's from Ireland, and they're all I think they're Catholic, and they all have to wear a uniform. I love that show, and the one girl's in in Bridgerton too. Any hoozle, but they have
yeah,
their uniforms, but they all
yeah,
wear them a
look
little
different, yeah.
differently. Yeah, and so
Yes,
it's like,
and that's that was probably the same, but like the first convent, maybe the seniors found a way to do it, but they would literally find, you know, you weren't allowed to have your tie because some of them would wear really short ties or really long ties or whatever. All that would be squashed as well. But I think the first convent I went to, it was actually like a dress made like that, so there was like nothing you could do. I'm sure maybe seniors did, I don't know. So mindful for anyone that trying to control humans, I suppose, even if it's rooted in trying to do the right thing, that
yeah,
by immediately separating and labeling people, you causing a problem right there instantly.
right, which is
Just,
why
yeah, mind blowing.
which is why I should keep my mouth shut when in conversations like this, not this, but in conversations like what I've had with my family, instead of spewing, oh, love, 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 just stay in love. And if they want to hear what I have to say, they can.
I bet if you said nothing, you would get, and that would be an interesting thing. I
I'll
was going to
see.
say
That's a good.
goaded into answering, but at that point you can go, well, you know, I do have an opinion on it, but you know, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That would infuriate them. What do you mean? It doesn't matter.
But and I'll just say this real quick too. I think too, though, there's an issue of boundary. Like, just because I don't necessarily agree with them, like if I have an opportunity to extricate myself from the conversation, because that the energy around those topics can really bring me down, like really affect me. And so, like the other day when I was telling you that I had that phone call from my sister, and she was saying stuff that I did not agree with, and then her phone died or something. The universe cut us off, and I was like, "Yay! Thank you, guys, for helping me with boundaries." Because there is that aspect of it too. But yeah,
I'm trying to think of an example. I can't. Hello, cat. Tell me if she's purring into the microphone. I actually get scared a bit when conversation wanders towards an area that I think might be contentious or whatever, or might involve something like that where I don't think the same as someone else. I do get scared then, because I don't want to be that goody two shoes, but I also don't want to be involved in the conversation. And I must admit, there is a level of, and I felt that once quite strongly at swimming. It turned out that the conversation was completely harmless and it was fine, but I remember feeling completely and utterly responsible for how everybody was. It was a real eye-opener. I was feeling responsible for how everyone else was feeling about a conversation that I wasn't having, and I was still trying to control it in my head about, oh my god, what if she wanders down this path, what will I do? Like, I can't say nothing, but I also don't want to go there. So it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to think, what how did we start this? Nobody wants to hear your shit, was it? Nobody gives a
Nobody
shit about
gives a
what you have to
damn.
say.
Nobody
Gives a damn.
Yeah.
Yes, but that actually is a workaround in itself, isn't it? I do not want to be that person. Does that make me weak? Does it mean I don't believe it myself? I don't know. It's a bigger topic, isn't it?
Yeah. Maybe it's just a matter of, we can still, maybe in that moment, we can just practice being in a state of love and loving everybody that's there regardless.
Practicing loving somebody without making them different.
Yes. Ooh. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot in it. So I think I was going here and then I went off and around about COVID, but I say less now to Gary about stuff because it's tiring and I know what he's going to say, and I don't want you to say, no, don't press that button.
Yeah.
I'll start a tirade about COVID or Nicola Sturgeon or something like that. Yeah. But it's funny because his views do change really slowly. I mean, we're a long way off politics, but like the COVID thing, he did come around to my way of thinking. And I actually find me saying less. Like it's like I can see that when I not argue, but even my calm, rational, well, have you thought about how other people might feel about this? Just enrages him and just adds fuel, not enrages him. I mean, he's doing it like a joke rant. I'm not suggesting he's getting, but I realize now that if I want these conversations to stop, I have to stop fueling them. So I just say nothing.
Yeah.
What are you doing? She's
I'm
such a
purring
pest.
at your microphone. I can hear
Is
it.
she?
purring.
Could you want me to move it?
No, I don't. I like it.
Have you got any other thoughts on that, Julie?
No, I think the way to practice was like what I said about practicing. That's the
Yeah.
That's
What is it? To love somebody without needing them to be different.
Yep.
That's wow.
Yeah.
That's hard,
That's
isn't it? So that's the end of today's episode. We started on one subject, covered a lot of subjects. I think we managed to bring it back round, Julie. I don't know. As you said at the beginning, enjoy the ride. It was a ride. It was they're always the best ones. So I'm Kate Foggo. This is Julie Hurt. We are making light to humans being. If you want to subscribe, it's all down there. It's all in the show notes. If there is anything, I can't remember now if we talked about anything that requires notes, but we'll see when we do the editing. You can follow us on Facebook. Please do follow us on Instagram. Please do. You can subscribe on YouTube. That's the one. And if you've got any comments or ideas or suggestions of stuff you'd like us to talk about, please put it in the comments below. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.